Step behind the curtain of Hollywood's golden age and uncover the haunting real-life stories behind The Wizard of Oz in 1939. While this beloved classic continues to enchant generations with its dazzling colors, unforgettable songs, and whimsical characters, the lives of many of its cast members took darker, more tragic turns. From Judy Garland's heartbreaking struggles with addiction and studio exploitation to the mysterious and untimely deaths of several supporting actors, the legacy of Oz is marked by more than just magic. It's also shadowed by pain, scandal, and sorrow. In this video, we reveal the fates of the actors who helped bring the land of Oz to life, but whose own lives ended in ways far less fantastical. Their stories deserve to be remembered. Judy Garland was born on June 10, 1922, and portrayed Dorothy Gale in The Wizard of Oz in 1939, at just 17 years old. Her role as Dorothy, the wide-eyed farm girl swept into a magical world, captivated generations with its mix of innocence, hope, and emotional honesty. But the sweetness on screen masked a life built on trauma and exploitation. Born Frances Ethelgum into a vaudeville family, Judy's childhood was anything but idyllic. Her parents' marriage was fraught with scandal. Her father allegedly engaged in homosexual affairs that forced the family to relocate multiple times. Her mother, Ethel Gum, was a relentless stage mother who began drugging Judy with pills to control her appetite and energy by the time she was 10. Judy later described her mother as the real Wicked Witch of the West. MGM picked up where Ethel left off. Studio executives forced Judy to take amphetamines to stay thin, barbiturates to sleep, and even strapped her breasts down to maintain her childlike appearance. She was constantly told she was ugly and fat, leading to a profound inferiority complex. Garland was fired from multiple projects, Any Get Your Gun and Valley of the Dolls among them, due to her chronic lateness and substance-fueled meltdowns. Her most humiliating failure came in the early 1950s when she was labeled uninsurable by major studios, effectively blacklisting her for a time. Personally, she endured 5 disastrous marriages. One involved domestic abuse, another financial manipulation, and her children, including Liza Minnelli, suffered emotionally from her mother's instability. Her third husband, Sid Luft, allegedly embezzled hundreds of thousands of dollars, contributing to Garland's lifelong financial instability. She filed for bankruptcy in 1950 with over $500,000 in debts. In her later years, she performed in nightclubs to survive, at times collapsing mid-performance. Judy died on June 22, 1969, in a rented London apartment bathroom from an accidental overdose of barbiturates at age 47. Her net worth at the time was reportedly less than $40,000, and she left behind no will. Ray Bolger was born on January 10, 1904, and played the role of the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz in 1939, at the age of 35. In the film, Bolger's Scarecrow was kind-hearted, agile, and ever hopeful. His yearning for a brain turned him into a symbol of underestimated wisdom. Raised in a devoutly Catholic, impoverished Irish family in Dorchester, Massachusetts, Bolger's childhood was marred by hardship. His father worked menial jobs, and his mother, cold and emotionally distant, discouraged his dreams of the stage, calling them foolish. Mocked for his wiry frame and severe facial features, Bolger developed a self-deprecating humor to shield his insecurities. Despite eventually finding his way into vaudeville and Broadway, his big break came at cost. MGM's studio machine suffocated his individuality. Initially cast as the Tin Man, Bolger pleaded, nearly to the point of threatening to quit, to be reassigned to the Scarecrow role, fearing his talents would be wasted. He got his wish, but it soured his relationships with producers and some castmates. Bolger was known to be hypercritical of others' timing and choreography, to the point of alienating choreographers and co-stars alike. Behind closed doors, he reportedly micromanaged his performances obsessively, and insiders claimed he rewrote comedic bits without approval. His biggest failure came post-Oz, when he signed to lead Where's Charlie? On screen, an adaptation that flopped commercially, derailing his aspirations for film stardom. Personally, Bolger's life was deeply guarded. While married to Gwendolyn Ricard for over 5 decades, there were whispers in theater circles of his infidelity and repressed emotional outbursts behind the scenes. The couple remained childless, something Bolger rarely discussed, but friends later recalled his quiet grief over the family that never was. In his later years, he was diagnosed with bladder cancer and died on January 15, 1987, in Los Angeles at the age of 83. He passed away in relative modesty, with a reported estate valued at just under $500,000, including a modest Beverly Hills home and some musical memorabilia. Bert Lahr was born Irving Larheim on August 13, 1895, and played the Cowardly Lion in The Wizard of Oz in 1939, at the age of 44. His performance was wildly popular. Lahr infused the lion with an erotic vulnerability, wild facial contortions, and nervous bravado that turned the character into a scene stealer. But the cowardice that made audiences laugh was rooted in Lahr's real psyche. Born in New York City to a family of German Jewish immigrants, Lahr's childhood was harsh. His father was a tailor who discouraged emotion and affection, and Lahr's mother died when he was young. Traumatized and desperate for approval, Lahr dropped out of school at 15 to join vaudeville circuits, where he quickly became known for a blend of manic energy and depressive slumps. Throughout his life, he was plagued by extreme hypochondria, frequently walking off sets or canceling appearances over imagined illnesses. Though loved on stage, Lahr was often loathed behind the scenes. His overbearing presence and control-freak tendencies made him difficult to direct, and he was once banned from a Broadway revival for berating a younger co-star in front of the press. His personal life was even more fractured. Lahr married actress Mildred Schroeder in 1929, but their relationship was toxic, punctuated by jealousy, infidelity, and long separations. At one point, Mildred left him and took their son, John, with her to California. John Lahr later wrote that his father could only love through an audience and was emotionally unavailable as a parent. Bert's affairs were not secret in the theater world. He allegedly had a long affair with a dancer nearly 30 years his junior during the filming of Oz. His most painful professional failure came in the 1950s when he attempted to revive his film career, but was dropped from 3 productions in a row due to erratic behavior and creative clashes. Lahr died in New York at age 72 on December 4, 1967, in a hotel suite alone, while awaiting surgery. His estate included investments, stage memorabilia, and a property in upstate New York, but little was ever officially valued, with private estimates ranging around $1 million. Frank Morgan, born Francis Philip Wupperman on June 1, 1890, was 49 years old when he took on a multifaceted role of Professor Marvel, the Emerald City Gatekeeper, and the Wizard himself in The Wizard of Oz in 1939. His performances were whimsical, mysterious, and comforting all at once, offering audiences a sense of wonder tinged with humanity. But Morgan's life off-screen was a far cry from the jovial trickster he played. He was born into a wealthy family that made its fortune from the Angostura Bitters empire, but with that privilege came entitlement and decadence. A lifelong alcoholic, Morgan's drinking habits were legendary on the MGM lot. He reportedly kept a flask in his costume and often had to be physically supported between takes. Though charming to many, directors and assistants found him increasingly difficult to manage, prone to slurred speech, unpredictable moods, and miscues. While married to Alma Muller for over 30 years, Morgan was widely known to have engaged in numerous affairs, including with young actresses whom he mentored and, allegedly, manipulated. His biggest career embarrassment came in the early 1940s when he was passed over for a lead role in favor of a younger actor due to his chronic intoxication. That snub, paired with the death of his only son in a horrific car crash, sent Morgan into a downward spiral of depression and binge drinking. He became so unreliable that MGM quietly phased him out of major roles, despite his talent. Behind his jovial on-screen image lay a man haunted by the loss of relevance and the weight of grief. He was also plagued by health issues, including advanced liver disease, which was kept out of the press at the time. On September 18, 1949, Morgan died of a massive heart attack in Beverly Hills at the age of 59. Though rumors swirl that he had squandered much of his fortune, his estate remains sizable, estimated at around $1 million, or roughly $12 million adjusted for today. Margaret Hamilton was born on December 9, 1902, and played the role of Miss Gulch in The Wicked Witch of the West and The Wizard of Oz in 1939, at the age of 37. Her performance was a masterclass in villainy, screeching cackles, flaming broomsticks, and green skin that terrified generations of children. Her character was merciless and theatrical, becoming the blueprint for evil witches in cinema. Despite audiences fearing her, Hamilton was deeply empathetic and once said, "I hated thinking I'd frighten children." She grew up in a repressive, emotionally cold household in Cleveland, where she was discouraged from expressing herself. As a child, she was often mocked for her sharp facial features and witch-like nose, a source of cruel teasing in school that left her shy and emotionally guarded for life. Her first career as a kindergarten teacher ended in disappointment. She was fired for using overly dramatic storytelling methods. Her transition to acting was rocky. Typecast for her appearance, she endured repeated rejections and was considered too scary even for comic roles. The Oz set became a personal nightmare when she was severely burned in a pyrotechnics mishap during her character's fiery exit. The accident left her hospitalized with second- and third-degree burns on her face and hands. Studio execs tried to silence the incident, and Hamilton was forced to return quickly under pressure. She developed a fear of fire and refused further dangerous stunts, leading to tension with MGM. Though known as polite, she privately despised being pigeonholed as a villain and suffered a quiet nervous breakdown in the early 1940s. Her only marriage to Paul Meserve ended in a bitter divorce after just 7 years. Her son, Hamilton Wadsworth Meserve, maintained a distant relationship with her in adulthood, reportedly due to her insistence on moral perfection. Margaret Hamilton died on May 16, 1985, in Salisbury, Connecticut, at the age of 82 from a heart attack. Her estate, comprised of modest savings, residual checks, and a small Connecticut property, was valued at under $300,000. Charlie Grapewin was born on December 20, 1869, and took on the role of Uncle Henry in The Wizard of Oz 1939 at the age of 69. His portrayal of Dorothy's earthy, no-nonsense uncle in Kansas was warm and understated, a stark contrast to the chaos of Oz. Born into grinding poverty in Xenia, Ohio, Charlie was forced into child labor by the age of 8, traveling with ragged circuses and enduring years of mistreatment at the hands of traveling showmen. He ran away repeatedly and taught himself to read from discarded playbills. In his teens, he joined a vaudeville troupe, where he quickly developed a reputation as both a gifted comic actor and a difficult colleague, frequently involved in fistfights and affairs with married dancers. His longtime wife, Anna Chance, an actress herself, was known to have left him for months at a time due to suspected infidelities and gambling binges that left their finances in ruins. By the 1920s, Grapewin's Broadway and film ambition saw him leap from tent shows to MGM contracts, but his off-screen behavior remained turbulent. Directors often found him irritable, dismissive of younger actors, and prone to disappearing for days during shoots. The Wizard of Oz was not his favorite project. He privately told friends he found the script silly and thought the production a child hallucination. Yet it gave him a late career revival. Still, his ego remained unchecked. In 1943, his wife Anna died under murky circumstances, with unconfirmed rumors hinting at her death being hastened by stress-related illness, possibly tied to domestic abuse, though no charges were ever filed. In his later years, Grapewin grew paranoid and reclusive, convinced that the studios owed him unpaid royalties and that his phone was tapped. He died alone on February 2, 1956, in Corona, California, aged 86, from natural causes. Despite a career in over 100 films, his net worth at death was estimated at just over $900,000 in today's value, with several properties, including the house he died in, tied up in probate due to unclear will revisions. Jack Haley was born on August 10, 1897, and played the role of the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz in 1939 at the age of 42. His portrayal of the heart-seeking Tin Man, a mechanical figure yearning for emotion, resonated deeply with audiences, symbolizing vulnerability behind a rigid shell. But behind the screen smile and calm charm was a man hardened by personal loss, fierce industry politics, and a quiet bitterness. Haley's early years were shaped by a rough Irish Catholic upbringing in Boston, where his alcoholic father abandoned the family and left Jack to work menial jobs from the age of 10. He was mocked for his effeminate voice as a teenager, something he concealed with a hardened professional shell in later years. His Hollywood career, while seemingly stable, was scarred by rejection and resentment. He was not MGM's first choice for the Tin Man, Buddy Ebsen was, but a near-fatal allergic reaction removed Ebsen and left Haley with both the opportunity and a permanent eye injury from makeup. He grew resentful of the circus atmosphere on set and loathed working with Margaret Hamilton, whom he described privately as theater poison. Off-screen, Haley's marriage to Florence McFadden was marked by icy silences and rumored affairs. He allegedly kept a mistress in a Hollywood Hills apartment for over a decade. While he avoided public scandal, insiders whispered about his gambling debts and brief but intense addiction to sleeping pills in the late 40s. His biggest professional failure came in the early 1950s, when he tried producing a TV variety show that flopped so hard it ended his on-screen career. Haley died of a heart attack on June 6, 1979, in Los Angeles at age 81. Though never a headline star, he owned multiple properties in California, and his estate, managed by his son, director Jack Haley Jr., was valued at around $1.2 million. His posthumous fame soared partly because of his indirect link to Judy Garland and Liza Minnelli, but his own life was marked more by quiet resignation than fairy tale endings. Billie Burke was born on August 7, 1884, and played Glinda the Good Witch in The Wizard of Oz in 1939 at age 55. Glinda's ethereal beauty, sparkling gown, and maternal kindness made her a beacon of safety in Oz's twisted landscape. But Billie herself lived a life of masks, hiding deep insecurities and tragic regrets behind her fluttery performances. Born into a vaudeville family and raised backstage among drunks and clowns, Billie craved the glamour she later portrayed. Her youth was lonely, filled with transatlantic moves, bullying for her lisp, and emotional detachment from her restless mother. Though she married Broadway mogul Florin Ziegfeld, their relationship was far from ideal. He was a notorious philanderer, and Billie was forced to swallow her humiliation when his mistress, showgirl Lillian Lorraine, flaunted their affair publicly. After Ziegfeld's death and the 1929 stock market crash, Billie was left near destitute, forcing her return to the screen. Her career had high points, but she was often relegated to playing aging socialites, a painful echo of her fading status. Privately, she suffered from bouts of severe anxiety and was dependent on barbiturates throughout the 1930s, often slurring lines and requiring cue cards. In later years, her relationship with her daughter Patricia grew strained. Patricia once wrote that her mother was never present, only performing. Billie's greatest disappointment came when she was overlooked entirely in The Great Ziegfeld, 1936, with Myrna Loy portraying her in what she called a mockery of my real life. Billie Burke died on May 14, 1970, in Los Angeles, aged 85 from natural causes. Though her name faded with time, she left behind an estate worth approximately $700,000 and a Hollywood Hills home filled with antique mirrors and costume jewelry she once called her armor. The sweet sorceress on screen was far removed from the wounded woman who had spent decades conjuring happiness out of heartbreak. Clara Blandic was born Clara Blanchard Dickey on June 4, 1876, aboard an American ship anchored in Hong Kong Harbor. She was 63 years old when she portrayed Auntie M in The Wizard of Oz 1939, a role filmed in under a week yet etched forever into cinematic memory. She was raised in Massachusetts by emotionally distant missionary parents, whose obsession with duty left her starved for affection. Her childhood was punctuated by instability, and as a young girl she often fled the family's stern household, seeking solace in theater groups. Her career began with promise but was marred by a string of bad luck and betrayals. Though she appeared in over 150 films, she was frequently uncredited or sidelined. She suffered humiliating setbacks, including being fired from a lead role in a Broadway production after a bitter feud with a co-star that turned physical. Whispers around Hollywood accused her of being controlling and emotionally unstable, and her private life only added fuel to the fire. Her marriage to stage manager Harry Stanton ended in public disgrace after she accused him of engaging in an affair with a male dancer, a scandal quietly suppressed by the studios. She had no children, and her later years were filled with estranged friendships and failed relationships, including a rumored affair with a married producer that ended with her being blackballed for several years. In the 1950s, her physical health collapsed. Crippling arthritis twisted her fingers, robbing her of both dignity and livelihood. Her eyesight deteriorated rapidly, leaving her half-blind. She lived in isolation in a small Hollywood apartment, reportedly surviving on residual checks and canned soup. On April 15, 1962, at the age of 85, she took her own life in a chillingly poetic manner. After carefully arranging her belongings, dressing in her finest gown, and writing a farewell note about facing the great adventure, she swallowed a lethal dose of sleeping pills. Her estate was shockingly sparse, less than $2,000 in assets and a small collection of vintage stage jewelry. Pat Walsh was born on July 26, 1900, and took on the role of Nico, the silent commander of the Winged Monkeys, in The Wizard of Oz 1939, at the age of 39. Though his character uttered no words, Walsh's performance was hauntingly memorable. His exaggerated, twitchy gestures and inhuman expressions terrified generations of viewers. Nico didn't need a voice to command the screen. Walsh's physicality, rooted in years of animal mimicry, turned a minor role into something unforgettable. Born with dwarfism, standing only 3 feet 11 inches, Walsh's early life was grim. He grew up in New York City in an impoverished Irish-American household where food was scarce and affection scarcer. As a child, he was mocked for his stature and odd behavior, often hiding in alleyways imitating animals to escape ridicule. By age 8, his parents pushed him into sideshows, where he was billed as the human monkey. His skills were honed in circus tents, but behind the mask was a boy who never had a normal childhood. In Hollywood, Walsh was respected, but never fully embraced. He was known to be obsessive to the point of mania, spending days in zoo enclosures, refusing to break character even off camera, and once biting a fellow performer during rehearsal to test realism. He clashed with studio heads, demanding creative control over movements, which led to him being quietly blacklisted from future MGM productions. His greatest professional failure came in 1943 when he attempted to launch a one-man Broadway show about evolution, Monkey Man, from ape to actor, which was a critical and commercial disaster, closing after 2 nights. Personally, he lived a life of isolation. He never married, had no children, and reportedly kept only a taxidermy monkey named Jonas as company. Walsh suffered from severe arthritis and possible undiagnosed schizophrenia in later years. On December 11, 1991, he died of a heart attack in Los Angeles at the age of 91, alone in a cluttered bungalow surrounded by decaying memorabilia. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at $75,000, mostly tied to vintage collectibles and minor royalties. Billy Bletcher was born on September 24, 1894, and lent his unforgettable voice to the Munchkin Mayor and the Lollipop Guild in The Wizard of Oz in 1939, at the age of 45. Though Charles Becker physically portrayed the mayor, it was Bletcher's thunderous, almost comedic baritone that brought the character to life. His performance was layered with energy, pomp, and a hint of theatrical arrogance, making the Munchkinland sequence one of the most memorable in the film. Yet, for Bletcher, life behind a microphone was not as harmonious as his characters. Raised in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, he grew up in a family burdened by financial hardship and a distant father who dismissed artistic pursuits as childish. This rejection reportedly fueled a lifelong hunger for validation that led Bletcher to be highly competitive, even petty, within the animation industry. His deep, menacing voice landed him the role of Disney's Pete, but behind the scenes, he clashed bitterly with Walt Disney himself. In fact, Disney allegedly blacklisted him from voicing in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, fearing Bletcher's voice was too recognizable and would distract audiences. The snub deeply wounded him, and colleagues noted his bitter jokes about Disney for years afterward. He was also known for outbursts in recording sessions, and once stormed out mid-rehearsal after learning a younger actor was paid more. His marriage to silent film actress Arlene Roberts was stable on paper, but insiders whispered of years of cold distance, with Bletcher devoting more time to his sound studio than his family. His daughter Barbara later remarked that her father was more comfortable in a recording booth than a dinner table. He struggled to transition to television voice work in the 1960s, losing out on multiple roles due to what producers called a dated style. Billy Bletcher died on January 5, 1979, in Los Angeles at the age of 84 from natural causes. Though his estate was never publicly appraised, his assets included a modest home in Burbank and rare animation cells, rumored to be worth tens of thousands. Dorothy Barrett was born on February 3, 1917, in Los Angeles, and was just 22 years old when she appeared in The Wizard of Oz in 1939 as the elegant Emerald City manicurist, a brief but visually iconic role that embodied the dreamlike glamour of Oz. Her character, poised and wordless, symbolized the surreal polish of the Emerald City and left a lasting visual impression despite her fleeting screen time. However, Barrett's life behind the camera revealed the cruel undercurrents of the Hollywood studio machine. Born into a working-class family, Barrett trained in classical ballet and dance during the Great Depression, often skipping meals to pay for lessons. Despite being contracted by MGM, she was relegated to uncredited roles in over 40 films, never able to break out of the shadow of more marketable actresses. Her ambition often clashed with MGM casting directors, and she was quietly blackballed from larger speaking roles after allegedly turning down advances from a producer tied to the casting office. Though she never publicly named names, those close to her spoke of her bitter disillusionment with the industry. In the 1950s, she walked away from Hollywood entirely, frustrated and emotionally drained. Her most public failure came in the form of a failed stage production she directed in the 1960s, which closed after 1 week amid rumors of financial mismanagement and internal conflicts. Barrett never married, and while she found fulfillment in co-founding the American National Academy of Performing Arts, she lived modestly in a rent-controlled apartment for decades, subsisting mostly on a pension and dance instruction income. She was fiercely defensive of classic stars like Joan Crawford, even accusing Mommy Dearest author Christina Crawford of slander in private interviews. Dorothy Barrett passed away on March 8, 2018, at the age of 101, largely forgotten by the industry that once embraced her youth but discarded her maturity. At her death, her estate was reportedly worth less than $75,000, mostly consisting of teaching materials, studio memorabilia, and a few personal effects. Harry Bernard was born on January 13, 1878, and played a Munchkin villager in The Wizard of Oz in 1939 at age 61, an uncredited blink-can-you'll-miss-it role, yet symbolic of his entire career, prolific but invisible. A familiar face to fans of early Hollywood comedies, Bernard appeared in over 150 films between 1915 and 1940, often as bumbling policemen or flustered bureaucrats in Laurel and Hardy shorts and Our Gang comedies. His character work was impeccable, but he never achieved star status. Born into a poor French-American family in San Francisco, Bernard spent his early years performing vaudeville on crumbling stages, where he reportedly slept backstage and lived on stale bread and whiskey. Off-screen, Bernard was haunted by chronic alcoholism, something that remained a well-kept secret thanks to Hal Roach Studios' tolerance and cover-ups. Colleagues spoke of his on-set tremors and how his lines would sometimes be dubbed because of slurred speech. His personal life was no less fragile. His marriage to Jerry Gerard was strained by financial instability and his frequent absences. At one point, he was caught embezzling small funds from a stage tour to pay gambling debts, though no charges were filed due to his loyalty to the troupe. His most crushing setback came in 1937, when a leading bit role in a major feature film was cut in post-production, sending Bernard into a near-suicidal depression. He was institutionalized briefly in 1938 for what was then labeled nervous exhaustion, likely stemming from a mix of alcohol dependency and untreated bipolar disorder. Despite his troubles, he returned to the screen, including his minor work on Oz. On November 4, 1940, Harry Bernard died of a heart attack in Hollywood at the age of 62. His death went mostly unnoticed by the press, and he left behind little: an apartment filled with scripts, unpaid bills, and a modest life insurance policy. His net worth at death was estimated to be under $5,000, most of which was consumed by funeral costs. Tyler Brooke was born on June 6, 1886, and portrayed an uncredited Emerald City citizen in The Wizard of Oz in 1939 at the age of 53. Though his role as an Ozmite was fleeting, his energetic flair helped amplify the film's iconic Emerald City sequences. Behind the Technicolor fantasy, however, was a man suffocated by obscurity, humiliation, and a slow descent into despair. Born Victor Hugo de Bulier in New York City, Brooke came from a fractured family riddled with secrets. His father abandoned the household when Victor was still a child, and his mother allegedly worked as a seamstress for vaudeville costumers, sparking his early obsession with performance. Despite a respectable start as a lawyer and bank clerk, he torched his professional life overnight to pursue stage comedy, alienating his conservative relatives and plunging himself into financial chaos. Brooke's career had flashes of success, but he was mostly relegated to bit parts and musical filler roles. His name only hit national headlines once. In 1929, he accused Oliver Hardy of striking him in the head with a billiard cue after a heated dispute, an incident that shocked fans of the jolly comedian and left Brooke ostracized by industry insiders. While the case was eventually dropped, Brooke's film offers dried up rapidly, and he was unofficially blacklisted from major studios. Off-camera, his life was a carousel of brief, unhappy marriages, including one to a chorus girl half his age who left him after rumors of his volatile temper surfaced. He battled alcohol abuse in silence and reportedly lived out of a boarding house in Hollywood in his final years, relying on minor radio voiceover gigs and cash loans from former colleagues. His greatest tragedy was the 1941 death of his only son in a car accident, an event that friends claimed left him a shell. On March 2, 1943, Tyler Brooke ended his life by carbon monoxide poisoning inside a closed garage in Los Angeles, aged 56. At the time of his death, he owned no property and left no known will. His estate was virtually bankrupt. Thank you for watching as we reflected on the lives and legacies of the actors from The Wizard of Oz who are no longer with us. Their humor, charm, and unforgettable performances brought joy to millions and helped shape the show into a classic. While their journeys ended far too soon, their impact lives on through every scene, every laugh, and every memory they've left behind. As we honor their lives, we're reminded of how deeply television can touch our hearts. Join us next time as we look back at more stars who left us too soon, but whose stories continue to shine.